and a flaming motorcycle is sailing at his head. The dude doesn't even glance up at it.
Nope.
He is completely and utterly unflappable.
You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host,
Mike Lovett.
Part 3 of our epic recap of the epic movie, RRR.
Not the climax. It's
Crossroads.
It's the
Intersection.
it's the fulcrum of the movie happens right here.
Right, because Beam saves Raju.
gives him
Raju
the antidote.
is incapacitated. He gives him the antidote. He gives him his holy
threads.
cord, his prayer cord, I guess, that he wears. Admits that he's not a Muslim. Admits that he's really there to save Mali from the governor. And Raju is like,
You can see the anger in his, the fire in his
he's
face.
just like confused,
there's a
angry.
lot going on in that face, and that dude is a good actor.
Yeah,
he really is, because
and as a story beat, he is still recovering. Like, he is so weak from getting hit with the poison that he can't do anything about all of these revelations that are just suddenly hitting him, and he's trying to hold on to Beam because that's his mission. But he physically can't, so when Beam leaves, he has to deal with this emotionally.
Right. It's a big scene.
Yeah.
And he recovers a lot faster than Beam projects. But
and again,
well, he is a superhero.
He is a superhero.
First the second time watching, in that sequence when he's pummeling the wall, which seems fantastic, but again, it's India. That's Walter just
not very good walls. Well, come on, man! Like when they were running alongside the train. Like, what other country can you do that? Even in 1920.
Right. Yeah, there's running on a motorcycle
Jumping
and
through
a
the
horse,
steam.
and of course, the motorcycle's going to go the same speed as the horse. It's India,
of course.
But he's pummeling the wall, and then you get these flashbacks. And the first time you watch them, they don't make a lick of sense. Because there's these abstract images of a hand that's had a finger blown off.
Yeah.
And these gunshots. And it looks like there's this kid that shot the guy who's missing the finger. And then he's brought back to the present. He's got his mojo and he's going to go do the thing, even though he's heartbroken about it.
Right.
But the second time you watch it, he's upset, but those flashbacks are his motivation to go after Beam.
Yeah.
Those flashbacks are there because that's what's going on in his mind, and that's why he goes forward.
Right. He continues on his mission. So as soon as he is available to go on his mission, he goes to hunt down Beam.
Yeah.
Right. We don't see that part, but we know that it happens.
And it's a great piece of filmmaking because as its own unit, it works and it's confident in itself. It's not trying to explain to the audience why these flashbacks are happening, because we'll get to that.
Right.
And when you watch this again, it'll make sense.
Right. Yeah. It's
like a Christopher Nolan.
I just want to say, we haven't gotten to the intermission yet.
Oh, right. Because it's 3 hours long and we're at 1 hour 10.
And we're apparently doing blow by blow.
Right.
There's so much to do.
So.
And now we get to the security scene.
Right. The most awesome thing.
And again, going
awesome
to
things.
Indians having superpowers, one of Beam's helpers is listening to the sound the doors make when they open and close at the headquarters.
Right, because people are going into the party one car at a time.
Right.
So he's listening in this tree.
And they hear the outside doors close. And these are not the heavy doors. These are the wooden doors, the light doors. And he's listening. And it's so tense. And it's so quiet. And he hears the heavy inside doors open. And that's when he gives the signal to hit the gas on the truck that's carrying something. And the car crashes through the light gates because they weren't going to make it through both. It probably couldn't make it through the heavy doors, so they waited until strategically making their move. It is so smart and so good.
Right.
Because if this was modern Hollywood blockbuster, I'm not sure they would have had that airlock, and if they did, they would have tossed a grenade and everything would have exploded and then just drive right through, and it's like, it's not as interesting as waiting until you can make a surgical strike.
Yeah.
So they crash through the light doors, skid through the heavy doors. They do a bootleg turn till the car is drifting. This like 10-foot, 12-foot tall car is drifting sideways.
This army truck.
Right. It's got this huge cargo
the guy
area in the back.
rolls himself up in the canvas blanket to reveal crates of something. The guy stops the car, pulls the lever, and the crates open. And then
More like explode.
the greatest shot in cinema history as Kumaram Beam with all the animals of the forest launch out against the British.
Right, they just flies out.
This is when that disclaimer comes in. You got bears, you got deer, you got wolves, you got lions and tigers and... Well, I guess not lions.
There was no lions.
So you got wolves and
They had
tigers and
leopards.
bears and leopards.
Leopards instead of lions.
And the leopard comes up.
I'm not sure who was the more dangerous bear, Cocaine Bear or Cormorant Beam Bear.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were dangerous bears.
Very dangerous. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that is such an epic moment when Beam has got the two torches in his hand. The torches are important too, right?
And again, in confidence, it slows everything down.
Right.
It knows this is an awesome shot. It knows you want to revel in this. So it could have been 2 seconds long and then cut to him landing. But it is maybe 4 seconds long of this one
Sailing
shot.
through the air.
And then it has a reaction of the British. And then it has another closer angle. Again, like straight up comic book imagery.
Yeah.
Of Beam. And on one side is a tiger. And then there's another leopard maybe on the other side. And then he lands, and he's got this superhero landing, and the animals are pointed out. But then they turn to him.
Right. The animals that are closest to him start to attack him.
Right.
Because they're what? Animals. And he uses the torches to what? Scare away the animals, right? And so, I mean, you would not see that in a Marvel movie. If you saw that moment at all, right? And assuming that the hero hadn't been like gender bent and made, Chinese for some reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then they would have landed and all of the animals would have done their bidding.
Because the animals are on the good guy's side and they know who the good guy is. So, of course, they're not going to harm the good guys.
But in this movie,
we're not going to go after the guy
animals
that captured us.
Now, like for the whole fight scene, yeah, the animals are definitely attacking the British, but Beam dodges at least 3 animals.
Yeah, he gets attacked at least 3 times.
And there are, I mean, this is probably a 20-minute sequence, 30-minute sequence.
I don't know if it's that long. It feels like
it
feels not in a
so
bad
big.
way.
It's epic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the Gladiator, army movie or scene. It's like it's so big and there's just so many things happening.
So much is
it doesn't
happening.
feel like it takes a long time, but it feels like it should take a long time. Like
Right.
how could all of this have happened in maybe
these moments?
6 minutes?
And it's at that moment that Beam and Raj have their confrontation.
Right, because...
And if you thought Kumaran Beam's epic entrance
Right.
was...
Right, Raju was like, hold my bear.
Right?
Right? Because he comes crashing through. Now, I mean, the whole courtyard is in chaos.
Yeah.
Right? Every animal of the forest is just running scared. Like, are the deer there to kill people? No. But the people are in their way.
Right.
And they've got hooves and horns, and it's not good for anybody. When the fat British guy gets impaled on the stag's antlers.
Right.
See, set up the
Just
payoff.
rips his arm off.
Well, almost off, but
Yeah.
rips it up. I think it traumatized the deer too.
Yeah.
Like that deer is not sleeping for weeks.
That is a great shot too. Like he's fighting with the bad guy that has the key to Molly's freedom. And yeah, that's symbolic, but it's also literal. The
Right,
key
he
is
literally
on
has the
his
key.
gauntlet.
Yeah.
So being like flips him, and he's just flipping him for flip's sake. Like he's going to hit him in the
Flip's sake.
This is how he fights. He
What you
throws
see
the
is
guys
what you
around. But there's just a deer in the way.
Right.
And the guy's
just
arm
lands on it.
lands on the antler. And neither of them want to be there. So they're both flailing.
Right? The deer's trying to get away. The guy's like trying to get his arm off. It's so dark.
It feels
in that
so
moment.
painful
It's-
to watch, and it's so gratifying.
because he deserves it.
Oh, yes, he does.
He deserves it.
And
Those
then
evil
anyway, the
British.
key.
So he's made this epic entrance, right? And he's got the key.
Yeah.
He's got the key.
All he has to
And-
do now is
All he has to
head
do
over,
is
grab
fight his way
Molly.
through these pansy British guys that are already being just pummeled by tigers. And
Oh, did we talk
bears.
about throwing the leopard?
We didn't mention throwing the leopard,
But there is leopard
there is
throwing.
a moment where someone gets a leopard thrown at them. Watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
Again, if all you knew about the movie going into it was someone throws a leopard at another guy, like why wouldn't you go see that movie?
Press play.
Oh, and
Right.
by the way, we're
Give-
not even to the intermission.
Take
we are
my
not
money.
halfway through the movie.
Right.
This is going to be a long one.
People are turning off the podcast
Right.
now. So anyway, Raju's entrance, right? I don't know where these things came from.
No.
Because they are
These
not
four
introduced.
white
Well, I know where
horses
they
of
came
the
from. They come from the
apocalypse.
4 apocalypse
Right.
horsemen.
So he's got
Same place as the soundtrack.
4 massive white horses drawing a carriage, right? Like a
yeah, it's like a white carriage.
yeah, not like a farmer's carriage,
No.
but like a royal, like
Cinderella.
this is what the queen arrives, Cinderella's carriage, right?
Yeah,
And it's a flame.
it is on.
Why is it on fire? Because
It can
he
be.
needs to be epic.
Yeah.
It might have been
So-
included in the deleted scene. I don't know. I would love to see all the stuff that got cut from this movie.
Right? Yeah, there's stuff. that
It is
got
3
cut,
hours and not a wasted moment. So, what didn't they include?
right? But he comes in there with his 4 white horses in full uniform now,
Yeah,
right?
He is not hiding.
Beam
He
had no
is-
idea he was a cop. The wagon or the carriage is aflame. He lets the horses go, which immediately drops. I don't know what the like T-shaped bar is it's not the yoke because the yoke is what the
That's
horses.
what the horses
Right,
are
right.
attached
But whatever
to.
it is, right? The T-shaped bar that's in front of the carriage just hits the ground. It crashes like almost immediately into something and flips the whole kit and
Carriage.
caboodle upends it. And there's this amazing shot of Raju who has jumped off the carriage, of course,
yeah.
and he's standing on the ground, and this like
Flaming
30
carriage.
feet of flaming carriage is like sailing over his head in this big arc, and then it explodes and it hits Beam, and then they have the most epic fight ever,
Just a
which is Raju can't look Beam in the eye
right.
because he literally loves him.
Another
Yeah.
great character
Right?
moment.
He cannot look.
He's
him in
like,
the eye.
please let me arrest you.
right, right, and Beam is like,
I did
No,
nothing
that-
wrong.
I did nothing wrong. Let me, you know why I'm doing this. Because I told you while
Yeah.
you were dying from banded crate while I was saving your ungrateful life. And he's crying,
Yeah.
right? Because he does not want to hurt Raju,
Yeah.
and Raju won't look at him because he's going to hurt Beam.
Yeah.
He's going to do it if he has to. And epic fight ensues. Water versus fire.
Yeah.
There's that great moment where he throws Beam, and Beam has been holding the key this whole time, the key to Molly's freedom, and when he gets thrown, he's forced to let go of it, and it bounces and it bounces. And I've seen this in a lot of movies where the thing almost falls down a crate, but then lands just so then the hero has to go grab it, and it'll be you grab the thing,
yeah.
but now, oh no, it's almost gone, so we're just gonna grab the thing again, but it just falls.
Just goes
It's gone.
right into the sewer, never to be retrieved.
Yeah.
So
So-
that's when he really unloads on Raju, and Raju starts to feel the full force of Beam. And
Yeah.
it's pretty epic. I mean, you can't use the word epic too often.
No, you can't, because it really
It
is.
is, in fact,
it's-
awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
It is what awesome is intended to mean. It inspires awe.
It is.
And they have the big fight. They end up up on top, and the long and the short of it is
The like holy thread
right,
that
the
Beam
thread.
gave Raju is how Raju is able to keep him from saving Molly
Right.
just long enough to arrest him. And
Right. He catches him.
But there's an important part in that
right.
fight.
The British. Are you thinking of the governor?
No, that part too. But I'm thinking of when Raj has Beam dead to rights, and he's
with
got
the little
it.
stone.
Yeah, he's got a stone
Oh, right.
ready to bash his head and kill him, and he just falls short. And Beam turned. The fight continues.
And
Right.
But that's
And
important.
what again is interesting
It-
in that
well,
moment.
It is important. It's also important to remember that he only gets a reward if he kills Beam.
That's
He
true.
gets the promotion
He-
if he's alive.
Only gets the promotion if he brings him back alive.
But I guess he could have. Spoiler alert. Like the mother doesn't die at the beginning of the movie, but Beam would probably survive that attack, but it would
probably would.
incapacitate him.
Right, it probably would, but he doesn't choose to do it. And then
But
the
the-
real end of the
Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
After he doesn't incapacitate Beam, Beam throws him over, and while Raju is on the ground, Beam grabs 3 sticks out of his bandolier and stabs him in the heart.
Right.
Which, like, Raju is already heartbroken.
Yeah, no symbolism there.
No, this is a little bit of turnabout's fair play.
Yeah.
I really like those cool things because they're just like 3 sharpened pieces of stone that he wears across his chest. And there's nothing connecting them, but when he grabs them, he just holds them between his fingers
Right.
and just jams them into
Plunges them
Raju-
into his heart.
Into his heart. Must have missed the heart, but still.
So then
Superhero.
Governor Scott shows up and points a gun at Molly, and that's the ultimatum: surrender or we'll shoot her.
Right, which is the only reason he quits.
Yeah. And Raj realizes that. He says, "You want a chance at Molly?
Surrender
you want
now.
you want her
Stop."
alive? You need to surrender right now."
Right.
And this brings us to the interval with 3 R's.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean, lots going on in that.
It's so, yeah. I mean, I almost want to pause there, but I don't want to because because in our version where there isn't a 15-minute intermission,
The story continues.
it goes right into it, and all of a sudden you're like in a different spot, a different place, a different land.
Right.
Yeah, the intermission is a storytelling tool. It lets the audience leave and come back, and now you felt time go by. It is incorporated really well.
And then that's when we get Raju's backstory, the whole
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And we find out just and I've seen some reviews of RRR, and some of them are like, the backstory is like 20 or 30 minutes that you're just in the past, and I feel like it could have been done differently, and it could have been done differently. It could have been
Would not
incorporated
have-
all throughout.
Would
but-
not have been nearly as interesting.
Right, because the whole thing is up until the interval, you see Raju and Beam are
Opposite
totally on
sides.
opposite sides.
Right.
And now you find out, how is it that this hero of India was working for the Imperial Police?
Yes.
And the answer is because he was working on the inside. He was on a mission given to him by his father moments before he died
Yeah.
to get the guns because they needed guns to protect themselves against the British who had guns.
Yeah. It's a really, I mean, again, you've got to see the movie to do this justice, but it is a heart-wrenching scene. This whole thing, again, it's probably a 20-minute long,
Right,
15-minute
probably.
long,
Probably.
backstory. and it's you know, and it has to do with a village that is trying to do what they can to be. Raj's father is a former officer who realizes that he's on the wrong side of things, and steals a weapon, steals some bullets, and is now trying to train the village to rise up against the British Empire.
Yep. And Raju at this point is just a child.
Yeah.
Right? He's
10,
maybe
12.
10 or 12.
Yeah.
So that's what we see. We see the training. We see his father. His father talks about how in his day, a British officer had explained to him the value of a bullet.
Right.
Turns out this guy's had a shtick for a
and
couple
how
of
it
decades.
What was it? It was 4 shillings in that day.
Right.
I got to tell you, like, I wouldn't know a shilling from a quid. Like, I don't have any idea how many shillings are in a quid. I don't know.
But it is cool.
But
I don't know if that's inflation or
yeah, it's got to be inflation,
or if
right?
things are just getting more expensive.
Because this is his father, who's already in a flashback, and now his father's having a flashback.
Right.
And
It's an
guess
Inception
who,
moment.
Guess who was the evil officer?
Oh, let me guess.
It
Governor
was
Scott.
Governor Scott.
Yep.
The
I don't know if he was
most
governor then, but
evil man of all.
Do you know the value of this bullet?
Right. I just want to take a moment to say all the British, of course, are evil in this movie, right? But you know how, like, maybe in a Star Wars movie or even in an Avengers movie, like, there's bad guys and they're just kind of there to just get beaten up, and they're not particularly menacing or particularly good, right?
Yeah.
Voldemort.
But Governor Scott is Governor Scott because he is the baddest, meanest, most unflappable demon in a British uniform
It's true.
that the whole empire
Oh,
has. He
wait.
is evil incarnate.
When he makes his entrance at the very beginning of the movie, he's on a horse with a dead carcass of a deer and coming from a hunt. I mean, it's like the classic British,
Right.
we own you moment.
But he is not just mean and evil.
No.
He is
Sadistic.
He's dangerous.
Yeah.
He's really dangerous.
As strong and as intelligent and dangerous as Raju and Beam are, he is at least.
Right.
Yeah.
He is. It's just that he's evil also.
Right.
There was I'm sure a moment that we'll explain in excruciating detail coming up. But in Avatar, the original movie Avatar, not the Airbender, but the
Avatar 2009?
what's his name? Cameron?
Yeah, the blue avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah, James Cameron's.
He's got the Colonel Quaritch, whatever. But the dude, he's got the scars on his head, right?
Yep.
Like, this dude is not just the bad guy, and I'm not even honestly sure he is the bad guy. But in Avatar, like, this is a guy who is so tough that not only has he survived combat with these things before, but he is currently engaged in combat with insurgents that are 10 feet tall
Right.
in an atmosphere that is poisonous to him, and he's on fire. And he has no
Cool as
breathing
a
equipment,
cucumber.
and he just gets into the exoskeleton and starts whooping,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that is
The
a
order of
tough
operations, he
guy.
He
Yeah.
hops into the thing, then
he
pats
puts
himself
himself
out, and then decides to close the cockpit so he can breathe.
Right. He's a tough guy.
Yeah.
And Governor Scott is tough to that degree.
Yeah, he's in that same
Right. There's
vein.
the moment, well, there's two moments that I'll go ahead and just skip ahead to.
Yeah.
Right? The one where he's in a car chase. He's chasing Raju. So, spoilers of spoilers. And his car gets hit by a falling palm tree, right? And the front end of the car gets driven into the ground, so the whole car is flipping. Ass over tea kettle is what they say in Britain, right? And this dude is being flung out of the car,
Right.
He is flying through the air.
In slow motion, you
In
can
slow
see
motion.
his
He
cigar
reaches
is
over,
just particleizing.
Right, his cigar has exploded. He reaches out into space where his rifle is flying as well. He grabs his rifle. He hasn't landed yet.
No.
He brings it up to his shoulder. He lands on the wreckage of his car. And he shoots the other car so hard that it explodes it off of the road.
It doesn't. Yeah, when he hits the car, it doesn't
Flip.
flip. It goes sideways.
Right? It flies. Like the wheels are 6 feet off the ground.
And-
I didn't know how you can shoot hard, but he can.
I believe it.
And even as you describe it, like, again, you have to see it, the movie, because
Right.
like the look in his eyes,
Right. Oh,
like
he's
He
in
is
focus, man.
not
Face.
concerned about the car or landing. He is going to shoot that guy.
Right. He was. Oh yeah. I mean,
he is a tough villain. And is it more ludicrous than a Bond villain? Probably. But it's
It's
amazing,
so much
man.
stronger.
It's so great.
Much, he is Darth Vader without a redemptive arc.
and this goes back again to what like another theme of this movie. We've talked about the British being evil and everything. Like there are clear good guys, there are clear bad guys.
Right.
I mean, and that's what makes Raj's character really interesting, because you know from the beginning, like he's a bad guy, but like there's something different about him, and that's kind of where that arc happens. But man, you're right. Like it is so, like it is. He's the who's the blue guy in the Marvel universe, the big dude that
Thanos?
Yeah, he's the Thanos in this world. Like, man, nothing's gonna stop him from stopping.
Right. Yeah, he is focused,
Raj.
man. And
Yeah, after
again,
he shoots the car, he tells his soldiers, "Go after him, capture him alive, or I will skin every. I will scalp.
Skin.
I will skin
Skin
every last one of you." And I believe it.
Yeah, it
Right.
would.
Well, if you had just seen the guy pull off this trick, you know he could catch your skinny little butt and skin you. And again, there's another moment later where he has just witnessed like the utter humiliation of his troops at the hands of Raju and Beam, right?
Yeah.
And he's standing on the balcony next to his wife.
Yes.
And a flaming motorcycle is sailing at his head. The dude doesn't even glance up at it.
Nope.
He is completely and utterly unflappable, right? That thing, like, it's sailing inches above his head, and he is looking at these guys that he is going to kill. If the building didn't collapse out from under him, he would have done it.
Yes. Yes. By the way, I think that actor was in the that HBO series Rome. I think he was one of the
It's possible. He's been in. I did look at his IMDb briefly, and I mean, it's pages long.
Yeah, he's I mean, he does cartoon villain like nobody.
And he's done some voice work too.
Okay. It's great. Anyway, and we do have to kind of like speed up the process a little bit. Like,
Well, let's see. We can.
So this whole village scene with young Raj,
Right.
as we find out.
Right. So he's explained the cost of a bullet.
Yeah,
And it needs to earn its value.
that's right.
Right. The only way that it can earn its value is by putting it back into an Englishman,
That's right.
which is a beautiful way to do that.
It's so It is.
The British come. I don't even remember why they were there. Were they there to get his dad?
They were there to
yeah.
his dad. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
left
a
the army,
revolutionary.
so now
Okay.
they're here for
I'm
him.
gonna have to watch it again.
It's the only way to be short.
Right. So they send like a regiment. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 50 guys
Easy.
show up, and he basically he's the only guy with a gun,
Yeah.
and he's holding him back. And
This, I just want to say, like, this whole scene as a father, like, touches my heart, because
Sure.
if only I could teach my son how to be a man like he did in that moment. It's
Well, It's a little extreme.
It is extreme, but seriously, like it is so.
Be like a man, not teach him like in that moment, because that's a harsh moment.
Well, but it's the thing. Like you listen. The most important thing is for you to focus on what you need to focus on.
Right. That's where he gets his mission.
Yeah.
Right. He the short version is the he tells, I think, his son. He says, "You see how they fall back with just one man with a gun."
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and by the way, just to back up, he's shooting the rifles, he's shooting the guns, and he realizes he's out of bullets. And then it's his son who out of nowhere shows up with the box of bullets.
Right. His son shows up.
He knows that his dad needs help, so he shows up with all of the ammo in the village.
Right. He's got, and I don't know if this was symbolic or not, right? But he's got what is clearly an unwrapped turban.
Yeah.
His father was a turban, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got an unwrapped turban that he's got one end of it in his hand. And when he gets there and his dad is like, "What are you doing?" And he pulls it up, and the other end is tied to the ammo box and the dynamite.
Which, again, it's thematic, but it has that practical application. This kid probably couldn't carry all that.
Right. There's
stuff,
no way. He would have got shot.
But he just runs with the rope and pulls it, and that's really nice story.
That's good storytelling.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. It is. So we're failing at speeding this up.
Right.
Let's see. So his father gets shot. He actually got shot by a British guy who loses his trigger finger from the bullet.
Yeah.
Right?
he loses the ring finger.
I don't think so.
He loses a finger.
The father, Raju's father, loses the ring finger.
Then he should still be able to shoot the gun.
Well,
we'll have to watch it again.
Yeah.
But I am 90% sure he loses his trigger finger, which is why he can't pull the trigger, right?
Right.
Get in the comments.
You can only you can only shoot the way you've trained, right? And when you start messing with that, then your training is compromised. Anyway, gives Raju the gun in the most left-wing upsetting scene since The Patriot. Where Mel Gibson gives his 8 and 10-year-olds guns and instructions on how to kill the British Empire.
Right.
Another entry in the British are the worst cinematic universe. So Raju is shooting.
And a nice little motif that they introduce of load, aim, shoot.
Load, aim, shoot keeps coming up.
Just no matter how many British they throw at him, just keep calm, load, aim, shoot.
Right. His mother has evacuated most of the villagers. As she's evacuating the final group, his brother, her son, gets shot.
Mm-hmm.
She runs out there to grab him. She gets shot. So now Raju has lost his mother and his brother.
Yeah.
And now his father is, they're out of bullets, right?
Almost.
They've got one bullet left.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not exactly Roy O'Bannon, but.
Wow, that's a deep cut. I mean, it's not exactly, it's Latin, but it's pretty deep. Anyway, so they come up with a plan, and his father goes out to surrender, ostensibly. And when all of the British, because they're pathetic and cowardly, they surround him, he flings off
his robe.
The robe.
Yeah.
And he says, load, aim, shoot. And Raju shoots him, hits the dynamite that has been strapped to his back. And in typical movie fashion, all of the dynamite explodes when it gets shot.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that happens in India. I don't know.
It's called Indian physics.
Right.
Well, they get the secondary nitro that's been sweating for a couple days.
Right. It was old.
It was
old, so it could have been unstable. Anyway, his father, red mist, right?
Yeah.
Kills all of the British. So this is Raju's final interaction with his father.
In the last 10 minutes, the British have shown up, killed his mother and brother, and now he has been forced to shoot his own dad.
in order to kill the British and to save the village.
Yeah.
So talk about origin story.
So we have an idea why he's so focused.
Yeah.
And so that, that brings
That-
it around. And I mean, it's just, and then it brings it back, and he's now experiencing this crisis of confidence,
Yeah.
of conscience, really, because he wants to accomplish this thing that he's worked his entire adult life for.
And he has it now. He's captured
in his
Beam.
grasp. It's in his grasp. He's been given the special officer rank because he caught Beam.
And the importance of the special officer rank is that from time to time he's in charge of the munitions.
Right. So he gets to ship the guns. He at some point will be responsible for a shipment of guns and ammo to a British outpost.
Right.
That was the whole purpose of getting the special officer rank, was so that he would get in charge of the guns, and then he would bring those guns, he would divert them back to his village.
And
Because
opposite of
his
Shane.
father, like you said, in the greatest moment of liberty history, the father says, "See this one rifle?
Right.
See, we hold off a whole. What if every person in every village had a rifle? We could rid the British of," which is true.
Rid us of ourselves of the British.
Yeah.
Take that,
absolutely.
Shane.
Right.
Keep these deep cuts coming.
So now we know why he's motivated, but now he's torn because he's betrayed his best friend. And then the British, because they're evil, they put Beam out for public torture so that he can confess his crimes. And they put Raju in charge of whipping him,
Yeah.
driving him to his knees, which he doesn't. So that's when the Wicked Witch of London throws him a metal spiked bullwhip, which she keeps between her legs for some reason. So she literally just reaches down between her legs and says, "Use this," and throws it at him. And it's this evil Pontius Pilate looking device, right? Like this Roman-esque.
And the governor says, "Well, aren't you?
Aren't you
Wicked
quite vicious, my
Right.
dear?"
Like,
Because
this-
again, unflappable.
right? Yeah, this guy's digging it. He's like, I hope you got another one. I don't know.
So while
Right.
Beam is
That may
getting
be, that had been the most sexual tension in the entire
Right.
movie.
Right?
so while Beam is getting whipped with this monstrosity of a torture device, he starts
time
to
for a song.
singing.
Right. It somehow works.
It
It
does.
feels right. The first time I was watching it, he started singing. I didn't for a moment second guess it. Now, I've tried watching at a couple different times Sound of Music for various reasons. And every so often when they just bust out into song over the littlest things,
Yeah.
I get that it's a musical and that's why they're singing, but it always feels like we're going to stop the movie so that we can sing about it and then we'll get right back to the movie. Don't worry, this will only be a 4-minute detour.
No, but this is a whole plot point,
Yeah.
right?
It feels right. It's like he's getting whipped. He has this little talk to himself about how you can't fail now because if you fail, you didn't deserve the title you were given of protector of
Mhm.
tribal, of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it felt right when the song started. And then the lyrics are just amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
And through his song, he ends up turning the crowd that is gathered to watch. They stop just being passive and, oh, isn't it sad, to angry.
Oh, you can see it in their faces.
They riot
When he hits the deck after being tortured and after singing that song, two things happen. Raju grabs him,
Mhm.
gets him the heck out of there. Didn't have to,
Right?
but he did under the guise of putting him back into custody.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing is that the crowd went completely berserk and rushed the stage and rushed the officers.
And this completely
fought back.
unarmed Indian crowd demands reinforcements from the British because they are climbing over the barbed wire. Some people are getting pulled onto the barbed wire, and then other Indians are walking on their backs over it to attack the British.
It's really, I mean, it is a
feels
classic
hardcore.
moment of, realization that there are more of us than of them.
Mhm.
And I just want to say that having tried to get on a bus in Mumbai, that is exactly how they act.
They will absolutely walk
There
over
is
you.
absolutely no oh no, please, you go right ahead. No, they will push old women to the floor and to get a seat. But that's neither here nor there.
So that part was a documentary.
That was definitely historically accurate.
One guy said lunchtime, and they just rushed the wire. And
Yeah.
That's all
they
had
kept
to do.
rolling.
So and the other important thing that happens is Raj sees this, and he sees the crowd,
Right.
and he comes to the realization. And there's I love this where he says, I thought I was going to be freeing India with weapons. And I realized it's
He
the
turned
emotion
everyone into a weapon.
Right. He used emotion to turn the people into weapons.
Well, because again, his father says, the weapons will find the battle. Weapons will find the battle, and Raj realizes if I can evoke this emotion, like who needs weapons?
Right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah, it definitely the movie the two of them reform a mutual admiration society, right? Because Raju, he's like, he comes to the decision that he's going to free his friend at the cost of completing his mission.
right.
Because his friend has shown him that emotion can turn these people into weapons, that could be their key to freedom. And that's when he does eventually free him. Eventually Beam learns from Sita, who has come because
The British
The
sent
British-
her a notice that we're going to execute Raju,
Right,
and
Raju
we need you
gets
to collect the
captured.
body.
Yes.
he's going to be executed. Sita is coming to collect the body, and so she tells the backstory. And now Beam, he says, like, I was fighting for my family, he was fighting for the whole country, so I'm gonna go save him.
Yeah.
So like,
And it's
Beam,
important. And it's important to know that Beam at this point has accomplished his goal. Like
Right.
he has freed Molly with Raj's help.
with Raj's help, although
He doesn't know
it was
that.
He
Raj's
doesn't
help.
know it.
Even Molly, I don't think, knew that Raju was helping him.
Right.
No.
Help. She just knew that he was bringing her,
Right.
and
To watch the execution
and,
of Beam.
and she ran,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't ever see that he was holding the others back.
And
Right.
there's that great shot. Molly is running towards Beam, and Raju is running after Molly because he's going to make sure that she and Beam are safe. And then he sees this British officer loading a gun and aiming it at Molly.
Mhm.
So he pulls the gun. And from Beam's perspective, it looks like Raju is about to shoot Molly. So he grabs her, and Raju shoots the British officer. But that's not what Beam sees. So he wrestles him to the ground, and then he's got a spike, and Raju he's broken. He's bleeding. He can't breathe anything. And Beam he has his life in his hands, and he drives the wooden spike down. And again, my first time watching this, I had no historical context for who these people were, but I totally would have believed that he just killed him.
Right.
And totally would have believed that it
And it would have been
absolutely
fine.
killed him
Yeah.
to do that. Like, everything works. There's nothing cheap about it. I didn't feel like it wasn't a possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And the cinematography doesn't help that much,
Yeah.
because it starts by taking a shot from the opposite side,
Yeah.
so it looks like the spike or whatever has been driven through Raju's neck,
Right.
and then of course
But that it goes back to that theme of like how
How
what
far?
point does your single-mindedness in helping the big picture do you do so many evil things that you become evil? And so as an audience member, you're like, I mean, that's that's Raj's penance. That's like, okay, I'm okay with him dying there, knowing that he did what he could to save Beam and Molly.
Right.
You know,
It's tragic, but everything about it feels earned.
right?
Yeah.
But like you said, he doesn't kill him. He continues
Right,
on.
because that's not who Beam is.
Yeah,
Beam, as you say, at this moment he's got Molly.
right.
His job is to get her to safety,
That's right.
and
And he's not going to
he
sacrifice anyone else.
doesn't need to sacrifice anyone else to do it. He just runs,
Yeah.
and he never sees.
Raju
never sees
keeping
Raju
like
continue
4
to
or
fight.
5 more British soldiers, and Raju is fending them off single-handedly with a spike in his back and
Yeah.
a couple of
That's right.
rocks thrown at his head, and
He was in bad shape.
But so back to where Jim was, it's through this time he meets Sita,
Sita.
and learns the backstory, learns what's going on, and like makes just an epic pact that he is going to right this wrong.
Right. And so he goes back into the mouth of the beast to find his friend, who has been at this point imprisoned for months.
Yeah.
Beam hasn't been able to get completely out of this area around Delhi because the governor didn't die. He saw what happened and
locked it down.
And so they've been doing this pincher move, trying to catch him, right? Anyway, so Beam basically leaves Molly with his people, and he goes back to save Raju. And Raju, at this point, he has there's a scene where the Brits are talking about how they've been starving him, and then they go to look at him and he's still doing pull-ups, and every time he pulls up he's looking out the bars at the mansion,
Yeah.
Where the guns are.
where the guns are.
Again,
And that's when he quotes the Bhagavad Gita.
Yep.
Um,
The Sanskrit.
And that's why he gets the crap beat out of him again while he's chained and helpless, and then they throw him into solitary confinement, which is a hole in the ground,
right.
which has just enough room for him to kind of crunch up his knees and then continue doing very short pull-ups.
It's pretty amazing. Like he immediately goes. He's like he is inflappable. Like he's just
Right.
bang.
and it's
Yeah.
kind of a cool payoff from an earlier step during the Best Friends montage. He's doing pull-ups on a tree. He
That's
invites Beam to do pull-ups, but Beam decides to do squats with Raju on his back, which is about to come up.
Okay, so yeah. So Beam goes to rescue Raj. They find each other using the pound
Using
method.
not to again. Bangs not to on the ground, and
And
they-
again, the second most epic fight in all of cinematic history happens as they try to escape the prison.
I like
And
that-
which turns into the most epic because I'm like, there's actually like it starts one way and ends up,
Mhm. Another.
yeah.
It's so I like the dialogue exchange that they have when Beam gets there, because as far as Beam just saw, Raju was about to shoot Molly, and then he defeated him, but then he gets the backstory, so he doesn't question what was going on. He just trusts that whatever it looks like, it must have been in service of this goal. And he's crying to his best friend about it. I should never have done this. I never knew you were on such a noble journey to do this wonderful thing.
It is wild. It was Raja who was like whipping Beam, and
yeah.
it's Beam that's like crying, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I'm sorry, tribal that I am. I didn't understand this great goal. Like
that
you,
just
sir."
again seems like a really Indian thing."
Yeah.
right. And you had said something to me earlier about how the symbolism of when they first meet.
When they jump off the side of the bridge, Beam is the one that grabs the child, and Raju is the one that holds the flag for the country. But they save the child by trading. Beam gives the child to Raju, who gets it out of harm's way.
Right.
And then Beam has the flag, and that's why he was able to stay safe in the fire, and then they come together at the end. So it's this kind of...
It's kind of the whole movie in a 5-minute segment.
No, absolutely. That's
Because
really wild.
Raj wanted the guns and Beam wanted the child. But now that they've gotten past a bunch of hurdles, Raju was the reason the child is safe, and Beam is the reason the guns will come.
Yeah.
But both of them think that the other is fighting for a more noble purpose.
Yeah, that's a really powerful thing.
It's a great theme.
It is a great theme. And you know, again, you can't do, like, as we describe a few of these things, you cannot do it justice, because when you say things like Raju, because he's got broken legs, is now on the back of Beam,
And they look
and
like
they're doing
Goro from Mortal Kombat.
right, and they're doing gymnastics. Like, it's
It sounds ridiculous, but it looks awesome.
Right.
Dare I say it's epic.
It really is amazing to watch. It really, really is. And, you know, I mean, at that point, they're really one entity.
Right.
Like, to the
Yep.
degree that Raju has got British rifle in each hand, right? But he can't, they're bolt action.
Yeah.
So he shoots them, and then he lowers it down, and Beam racks the bolt.
Yeah.
And he shoots him again. And they're one person. you
They
know?
are.
And it is the best teamwork you'll see in any movie.
Which again, I mean, like, when you think about the purpose of this movie, which is what would happen if these two revolutionaries who didn't know each other came together, and that is what happened. I mean, they were working from different angles, different things, but they kicked the British out from, you know, they were on the same team. They were one, even though they were not united.
Right. Yeah.
And this is when we get into some symbolism. Because once they break out of the prison and they go into the forest, Beam takes Raju to a statue for the god Ram.
Heals his leg once again.
He heals his leg with the magic leaves.
Yep.
Which I really want to get some of those leaves.
Need some of
'cause
those.
I got some pain.
Now, all of the Indian mythology, pantheon, all of these things are very big and kind of complicated. So, if I understand correctly, Ram is a god of war, fighting, that kind of thing. So
He does have a bow and arrow.
He does.
yeah, a functional bow and arrow in the hands of this bronze statue. That was nice of whoever was in charge of that.
that was pretty good.
So he dresses Raju in the clothing of the god Ram, the destroyer, the war god.
Right.
And it's, I mean, when the British come again to bring them in again, I can't really imagine how that must feel to an Indian audience who's versed in that culture and in those stories and knows the relevance of everything, seeing that happen. Because that's also the garb that the real historical Raju wore as a revolutionary. And they say that later in the movie, you've given me the attire that will inspire my fight.
Yeah.
So, as one essayist put it, it is like seeing the superhero in his comic accurate costume for the first time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history converging at this one plot point.
Yeah. And they're fighting the British, and they're and again, it's as epic as ever. It's you know, they're kick flipping motorcycles.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
Yeah, not just kick flipping the motorcycle, but he catches it in the air and he swings it like a bat.
right.
I mean, I've seen people get hit by a motorcycle before, but not being swung like a bat.
No, that was just
It's
crazy.
so over the top, but in the best possible way.
In
Yeah.
a way that's so cathartic to watch.
Right.
And-
It really is fun. The whole movie is it's not all fun, right? But the whole movie feels so genuine. The emotions feel so genuine. Even when it's traumatizing, like Molly's mom getting crushed with a stick, or
Right.
or Beam getting ripped by a spike.
Yeah.
It still feels genuine, right? It feels authentic in real emotion. Not cynical. Maybe it's partly because the colors are nice and sharp, and it's not like muted and dull like so many modern movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's over the top fight action. Beam basically becomes at some point what Aquaman should have been, right? Because he's there's a moment.
There's another song playing at this moment where the lyrics to the visuals say,
"Of course there is."
Pounces like a tiger out of the water.
Right. But that moment when I guess it's a large moment, but Beam he's getting some water, and the British see him, and he's about to shoot him, and as Beam is pouring the water into his mouth, an arrow sails between himself and the canteen and shoots the British guy who was about to shoot him, and then Beam looks at him and just whoop, right into the water down to the bottom.
Oh, it's so great.
He doesn't look at Raju and say, "Hey, cutting it kind of close."
Nope. He jumps into the water.
Takes it seriously. We're gone. I'm gonna hide.
There's a part where, and I don't know how much I'm jumping ahead here, but
not much left.
I know there's not much left. Well, there's two things I wanted to say. One is how the henchman dies is just very satisfying.
Right. By Beam.
By Beam. Yep. Very face to face, satisfying moment. But I think my favorite, I don't know about the whole movie, but one of my favorite part, is when Raju shoots a guy. And I don't remember how he ends up in midair, but he's in midair.
He's already flying through the air from like a motorcycle.
Okay.
It might have been a Beam spear getting stuck in the motorcycle or a grenade tipped arrow, because there are a couple of those.
Something
explodes. This guy is flying and he's upside down.
And he takes his arrow, he shoots a British guy in the heart, and as he's flying by the British guy, pulls it through his carcass, restrings
the arrow, shoots another guy.
It's just, I'm sorry, Falcon can never hope to do something like that. The elves
guy is not that skilled.
Yeah, no, it's Avengers level stuff.
It's it's amazing, and it's incredible to watch. It just makes it's such a feel good type of stuff, you know.
Sure.
And then Raju turns to Beam and says, "Why are we fighting these jackals?"
Right. Let's go for the lion.
So Beam grabs another motorcycle, just, "Oh, you're driving by?" Mine.
Kills the guy, takes his motorcycle.
And then
Raju
jumps off the motorcycle, spins around, sees a guy riding a horse.
In midair.
You're right.
He shoots the guy with an arrow, so he falls off the horse, and Raju lands on the horse.
One jump.
now they continue on. These guys, like Jedi, are like, damn.
Right,
and another callback. We're headed towards the castle, and 2 hand signals. We've got to play it.
He's like I don't know what those hand signals mean, but I know what happens. He just launches
flaming motorcycle at
that
the
motorcycle. Shoots. Was it just a flaming arrow, or was it a grenade tipped arrow?
A flaming arrow.
A flaming arrow
lands in the gas tank, and that's how it explodes through the window.
Right. So the motorcycle's on fire. It's sailing through the air. The governor is there with his wife and a fairly large entourage watching this thing because they thought they were going to watch these guys get dragged back.
Yeah.
Right? And instead what they've been seeing is just...
It looks like a lightning show in the forest.
Still dark. There's just gunfire everywhere. He's like, what's going on out there? Because that's not what you want to see when you send all of your men to catch 2 guys.
Right.
You don't have any guns.
Right? It's like a Polish firing squad. They all got in a big circle and shot at each other.
More reinforcements.
Sorry for any Pulaskis who might be listening. Anyway.
So the whole thing explodes under his feet.
Right.
And that's how we get a very satisfying death to Mrs. Governor Scott.
Right. Because she just...
hanging upside down in barbed wire.
She gets all tangled up in barbed wire. Spiky. The governor's
It's
down
like
on
poetry,
the
it
ground.
rhymes.
Right. There's a lot of rhyming, a lot of echoes. The explosions. The explosion is like Luke versus the Death Star.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it takes out not just the room that it's in, because it's this awesome moment where the flaming motorcycle kind of lands in there. And I don't remember if the motorcycle blows up first or if some of the ammunition does.
Well, it's in a room of
But
TNT.
Right, it's in a room of ammo and TNT, but it explodes, and then you see flying, flaming bits, and then it lands in some, and then those explode,
Right.
and then flying, flaming bits, and then that explodes, and then it pans back, and the whole building is just sequentially blown.
I was gonna say, apparently the entire British armament was stored in that
Right.
one building.
Right, that makes sense, right? Because that's where they were shipping it to
Yeah.
all of the
That makes sense.
all of the outposts from that one place, which is why Raju was there in the first place.
Right.
Right? Because he knew where the central, I guess,
knew where the guns
distribution
were.
center was. And so he does end up Beam, now that he knows, he goes into the building.
Exploding
that is
building.
Exploding around him. and with superhuman coolness, I'm sure, he just like gathers as many crates as he can. He stacks them on top and ties them all together and drags
Drags the
them out.
guns, and again, with the building exploding around him, inspects the guns.
Yeah, he does stop to make sure that there's guns in them. Though, right?
Right.
And that's when you get the final.
Load, aim, shoot.
Well, yeah, and again, Raju and his pure coolness, sees the governor and says, what's the worth of a bullet?
Yeah, the governor's trying to load the gun, so Raju shoots an arrow through his shoulder, pins him to a
Right.
slab of concrete, because that's a great bow.
Right,
And he
catches the bullet that the governor flung when he got shot.
Right.
And hands the gun and the bullet to Beam. Right.
How can you throw away this bullet that's Beam? Return it to him, that he may keep it in his heart. Like, oh, this is poetry. This is Shakespeare. This is Greek.
It is.
This is Rajamali.
And I mean, can anything, when the bullet goes through him, and then having fallen from the top, there's a sign that says the sun never sets on the British Empire, and his blood splatters across him as the bullet goes through him. I mean,
Subtle.
It's wonderful is what it is.
Mhm.
you know why the sun never set on the British Empire?
God doesn't trust the British in the dark.
Oh man. Okay. Wrap up time. We all love this movie. It's fantastic. In fact,
Clearly.
walking out the first time with Steven, Steven turned to me and he goes, I just feel a little bit better about the world after seeing that.
It's a great
It's
movie.
really nice to see the bad guys be absolutely the worst and then lose. The good guys
but
absolutely win, but it's all of those trials and tribulations that they went through. It was not an easy win. Everything about that is so cathartic at the end.
The themes are just powerful. So maybe let's just go around and maybe like what, if you have a takeaway or a thought, like what would you say about this movie?
Have we just spent 4.5
I know.
hours
We
talking
just spent,
about it?
how can we sum up? It is kind of funny. Like we've spent, I don't know, 2 hours talking about a 3-hour movie, and trust us, we can go 2 more.
Oh yeah,
Would you like us
I
to?
could have done 2 hours just on a scene. Pick a scene and let's
Yeah.
talk about the themes and the.
Yeah, because it really
and that
is.
includes the dance number.
It really well. It includes the dance number at the end.
Oh, I hadn't even touched on that.
Right. It was. You know what? It was kind of like. Remember in '88, we didn't start the fire.
Yeah.
Right. How he just keeps mentioning like historical events. I don't even remember how far back it went, but I mean that's kind of the theme. Although I probably better done of that last movie or the last song in the movie.
Yeah.
Where they're dancing and singing and they're talking about the heroes of the revolution that they call bulls,
Yep.
right? And I don't know who any of them are. Not one. There was less time in my government school spent on Indian independence than there was on American independence. And there wasn't much
of that.
about American independence other
Right.
than, even at that time, George Washington had slaves, right?
Right.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did know that. I knew he freed them all when he died. Did you know that? Did you know Jefferson?
Does that matter?
Did you know Jefferson couldn't because he was so far in debt?
Right.
Anyway.
I love it. Little Jefferson jab there. That's fun.
Yeah, take it, Jefferson. Jeffy boy.
There's so much to talk about, and the movie is full of cultural, historical, and religious imagery and references that we don't even know about.
Right.
I know it's there, but I can't pick it out of a crowd.
But it kind of makes me want to learn a little bit about some of that.
I would love
Sure.
to know more about the history, the culture, the pantheon.
And if the movie accomplishes nothing more than that, I mean, that has to be a win for India, don't you
Yeah.
think? I mean, I'm not saying people should, consider converting to Hinduism.
Right.
Because, I mean, that caste system alone that has grown out of Hinduism has caused more evil than probably communism.
It's very possible.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah, that is hard to do.
But I mean, the idea that you were born into this lowly state because God put you there, because that's where you deserve to be because of something you did in a previous life. I mean, that has created some real problems. Having said that, it'd be good to understand more about it,
Well, but I think beyond that, like the themes that are in that movie are universal.
Absolutely universal, yeah.
The themes of friendship, and it seems so dang cliche. Like everything about this movie could have been a cliche and is a cliche, but it's such an epic cliche to turn it up to 11 that it just
13.
That's right. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I had Joey on the podcast a few days ago. We talked a little bit about the Second Amendment themes of being able to protect yourself from tyranny, and that we're stronger as that we the people are stronger than the elites who wish to rule us. That's there. Family. There is just so much that I think is relevant today in my life right now, and that's why I loved it.
Right,
I would love it if this movie could come out on Blu-ray, extended editions, give me all of the deleted scenes, give me director's commentary, and I'd love an annotated version of this movie where they explain all of the references.
Like when the human pyramid pops up. And they're like,
right.
This is celebrating the birthday of Krishna, because when Krishna was a boy, he loved honey, so they had to hang the honey in pots way above where he couldn't reach them. So he got his friends to make a human pyramid, and he would climb up and steal the honey pots. I had to look that up.
Wow.
I'm
I had no idea that's what that was referring to.
That's what it is. It's a huge celebration of Krishna's birthday because everybody apparently likes Krishna, the boy,
Yeah.
more than they like apparently Krishna, the full-grown god.
Culture, religion, history,
When
and
I was,
this
I didn't
5-second shot.
watch the movie, and I haven't looked it up since. But when I was in India, they actually had released a movie called Baby Ganesha and Me.
Okay.
It was, Ganesha is the elephant-headed,
Right.
humanoid god, right? And it's favored in Mumbai. And the whole thing was it was like a VeggieTales kind of a thing, right? Where Baby Ganesha is befriending this kid, and they have adventures. Yeah, I don't remember the story of how
That's pretty
Ganesha
great.
came to be. I asked someone, and she was explaining, it was this goddess and that goddess. She's like, there's a whole story. And I'm like, there better be. There's gotta be a whole story. But if my wife gives birth to a baby that's got an elephant head, there's a story there for sure.
Press play.
Right?
This really introduced us to Tollywood cinema and Telugu language films, which are apparently all at least 2.5 hours long since they have an intermission. So we were watching one of these, like a weird Western kind of drama, and there's these people that robbed a place, so they were taking the treasure, and then these bandits found the people that robbed the treasure, so they dressed up one of the guys as this god with 10 faces. So he's got like 5 masks on one side and 4 masks on another, and these masks are sacrificed through fire, and these are buried. So what are we going to do with this guy? Well, I guess we're going to burn him and bury him. It's like, this is so much for one thing, and I want to know so much about it.
Right. There's references to this stuff that at one point in this country, would have been, biblical references.
Right.
Even Shakespearean, possibly even Roman.
Yeah. And we all would have known them. We would have been fluent in those references.
Right. Right. Which is not so much the case anymore. Which I guess is one of my takeaways, is that India is a vast and varied place, and not everybody even close to has the same religion, right? But they're still very much steeped in their own history, in their own mythology, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that something like 20% of the country is Muslim, and a smaller percentage, but significant, is Christian. And then the rest are different, variations. I mean, Buddhism started there and Hinduism started there, but they all kind of are aware of all of it. And they know, like, the stories of it. That has been my experience anyway, They can recognize, like, oh, I see he's wearing like a green turban. That means this thing. That's a Sikh, and that guy's a Jain.
Yeah.
And like they're all wearing turbans. It's like it's a real subtle difference between a Jain and a Sikh for me.
Right.
But they're definitely steeped in their own culture, even though it is crazy varied. Right?
Yeah.
And America is less steeped, I think, certainly in our own history and in our own mythology, which includes not just religions, of course. I use mythology in a broader sense, but like the stories of the founders.
Yep.
Right. And even stories after that. So that's a big deal there still. And of course, men are still men and women are still women.
Yeah.
In India, there's no confusion.
Right.
Right. I met, briefly interacted with someone who my driver said was a eunuch.
Okay.
In Mumbai, and I don't know for sure. His English wasn't spectacular, and my Hindi stopped at, I don't understand Hindi. Do you speak English? But he called him a eunuch, and he was clearly a man and was clearly dressed in a sari, in a traditional Indian dress. And he was a beggar.
Okay.
Which makes me think that probably he literally was a eunuch, that his parents had him castrated, so that he would be that type of beggar.
Right.
But beyond that, like, a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it is, and nobody's confused about it, and nobody's upset about it. And in Indian movies, your hero is allowed to be a hero without somebody winking and nudging and making a joke out of the hero.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, John Wayne wasn't my favorite movie star, but John Wayne was that kind of hero, right? Like,
right. He portrayed those heroes. Yeah.
He was cut and dried.
Mm-hmm.
What he was doing is right, and what the other guys are doing is wrong. Clint Eastwood was when it started to get a little more muddled, and John Wayne really didn't like that.
Yeah.
And having experienced 50 years of that culture now, right?
Yep.
I can see that it just continued to get more muddled. And in most Indian movies that I've seen, I can't claim a lot. I mean, a dozen or so. But the bad guys are the bad guys, and the good guys are the good guys. And even when they have a crisis of conscience, like Raju does, it's not because they're not sure whether they're good or whether their cause is even just. But in his case, like, how far do I go?
Yeah.
To accomplish this thing, right? And that also is a big question that I think everybody at some point has something like that in their life, right? They have something that they want to accomplish, and you have to ask yourself, like, am I willing to hurt other people to do it?
Right. Am I willing to pay that price?
Right.
Yeah.
And it might be mundane things. I mean, for most of us, it's not going to be saving the whole country. Which, if you knew nothing, like if you had just arrived on planet Earth and you watched RRR, you would be like, wow, those British must have been kicked out of India by 1925, huh? Right? Like these guys must have teamed up and just run them right out of town on a rail.
Right.
I mean, it took 40 something more years, and I'm not as willing as most Indians to give Gandhi all the credit.
Yeah.
Because I think a large part of the reason why the British at home were so open to Gandhi's message of, nonviolence and just let us be, was that they had decades of one uprising after another. They were losing British boys. They weren't coming home.
And that was I think a really important part of this movie is, as an American, all we think about is Gandhi as the great revolutionary and the great, emancipator of India. But that's not true. Like these guys were really important. I don't know enough, but dang, it made for a great movie.
It did. It made for an absolutely wonderful movie.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Jim, James, man, thanks for coming over and talking about my new favorite movie.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for introducing me to my new favorite movie.
You're most welcome.
We'll have to, maybe we'll pick a scene and do it again. I don't know. Or maybe we'll talk about Swamp Thing. I don't know.
Swamp Thing.
All right. Well, everybody, please, if you like this content, you know what to do. Do that thing that you do so that we can make more of it.
Heard a song like that.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
The first of 23 installments requested by Dr. Levitt. We're trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.